Hey, it's Jimmy Lee Lard, the Sock Snob, and have a new video for you, another how-to. This time it is how to make the best smothered oxtails. So we have some oxtails here. I'm going to start by seasoning them up with some Cajun seasoning at first. There we go. So you'll see I have already washed these oxtails and dried them off. I'm going to go ahead and add now some garlic powder, not garlic salt. I'm going to watch how much salt you're using in these recipes, because obviously the more you season stuff, it's just going to compound. We now have some onion powder going on here. Very good. Now you're going to season this to taste, of course. I have some parsley. So this is less for taste and more for a little bit of color. I do have some paper towels here. I'm going to move these around a little bit. And just in case my hand gets in it, I want to be able to have the paper towels there handy so that I can wipe them off a little. Now I am not, like I said, I've already washed these oxtails. You know, there is this new train of thought that you don't have to wash meat anymore, and I guess maybe I'm just a little old school, so that does not work for me. So oxtails are going to cook for a long time. So what we're going to do is braise them. And then, so I have some olive oil in a Dutch oven. And get a Dutch oven if you can. You know, there was a time where, you know, cast iron skillet was the way to go, but a Dutch oven, you can do so much with it. And if you get a good one, you don't have to do the expensive Le Creuset. I do have one. I have 3 actually. But if you get a good one, it's something you can pass on to your children, you know, and so it can last for generations, really. So here I am now seasoning it a little bit more. I would say in the end, what we're going to end up with is probably somewhere in the area of about a teaspoon each of these seasonings that we're using. So again, same seasonings: onion powder, garlic powder, and Cajun seasoning for this. All right, so these are all seasoned up now. As you can see, oh, ignore the hot sauce over there. I'm also making, this is for Sunday dinner, so I'm making dressing and greens and a bunch of other stuff. So that's what that's for. So I'm gonna give this another toss, and then I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of olive oil before we head over to our skillet. And I'll show you one more thing I'm gonna do with it. So aside from the olive oil, like so, and I just have, you know, the spray olive oil. So I'm just gonna hit it lightly, because the next thing I'm going to do, I'm gonna add some flour right in here. So this is gonna do 2 things. It's gonna help it to brown for one thing, and then also we need to make a gravy. So I told you this is gonna be smothered oxtails. So we wanna make sure that we have a nice gravy, and this flour is going to help with that. All right, so just making sure it's coated. Don't worry, the rest of that flour is going to be used when we make our roux shortly for our gravy. All right, I think that is enough for now. Let's move on. So here we are. We have some olive oil and a little bit of butter. And I'm just gonna go ahead and start adding these oxtails. And I have the heat up high because we're braising them, so that requires a nice amount of heat. So we just want them to brown a little bit. Then we're going to remove these. And get some gravy going before we get all of this into the oven. And I want to get as many of them in here as I can at a time. I'm not, you'll notice that I didn't trim any of the fat off of these, because these are going to cook for a long time in the oven, so we want to make sure that they get plenty of that fat rendered off of them at that point. So I think that's enough for now. So here I want to show you they have been cooking actually for about 2 minutes. On one side I flipped it, and now I'm just trying to get as much of it browned as possible. And again, remember, we're not cooking these right now, we're just braising them so that we get some color on them, like so. And again, this is just some olive oil, about 2 or 3 tablespoons of olive oil, and then just a smidgen of butter. And this is right in this Dutch oven. And I have a foil pan here that I'm just going to collect these in until I get them all cooked, and then I will be returning them to this pot, of course. I'm going to add the rest of them in. Some small ones in here. So I'm starting to turn these over as well now. If you could only smell how delicious this is going to be. Wow. Alright, so I have just turned the heat down because, as you can see, these have browned beautifully. So I'm going to go ahead and remove them from the pot. Alright, so I have turned the heat down. So I've turned the heat down, and this is what we have left. So that you can see there's a little bit of stuff down in the pot. So we are going to add, just all of my trips to Paris tell me that the best thing you can do to deglaze a pan is add some butter. So again, this is on low heat. We are going to move this butter around in here, see if we can't pick up some of those pieces. Because there is a lot of flavor in this pot already. And we just want to continue with that cooking. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add some vegetables that I have here. And this is just celery, onions, tomatoes, not tomatoes, peppers. And look, I don't have time for all of that cutting, even though I have a bunch of celery to cut up because I'm making dressing. But look, in the frozen section these days, they have all manner of you know, ways to save time. And that's what we're going to do here. So all of this was pre-chopped and frozen in a bag. So I'm just going to let these saute just for a little bit. Because remember, these are going to cook for a very long time. So most of this stuff is going to all but disintegrate anyway into the gravy. So I'm turning the heat back up. And you may remember that flour that we had left over. I'm going to go ahead and add that into this pot. And yes, I used a plastic fork. Look, who has time for all this other stuff? I mean, a plastic cup there. So again, we're just going to let this cook and sort of form a bit of a roux. And the reason I turned the heat back up is because I wanted to turn a kind of golden brown color. And you'll see that in a minute. And when it does, we will then add a little bit of water. You can add chicken broth, but I'm not, because of my other little secret ingredient and shortcut, again, for this easy smothered oxtail recipe. So it almost has the right color. You'll see some pieces are already turning. Now you don't want it to burn, but you do want it to get a nice golden brown color. So it's almost there. So I have been turning this constantly, or stirring this constantly, and you can see how it's not burned, but it has this golden color to it now. Very golden color. It's a very pretty color. And even this stuff in here, you'll see is starting to get darker. So now I'm going to go ahead and add some water. And I want to stir this, and I'm going to lower the heat. And I'm going to add some more water. That was a little more than a cup of water. And now I'm going to add about another cup of water. And a final cup of water. Now, I'm going to bring this up to a rolling boil. Now, the reason why I don't need much more, when these oxtails cook down, they are going to release all of the fluid. Basically all of the fat is going to render down into this, so there is no need to add a ton of fluid. So once we bring this up to a boil, we should be good. Now to this, remember I told you I'm going to add another shortcut. I have some cream of chicken soup, so that's going to go in here now, and I prefer Campbell's. Now you can do cream of mushroom, would help towards a beautiful gravy. I'm going with cream of chicken just because I like the flavor that it adds to this dish. But do the soup the cream of soup that you want. All right, so I'm just trying to break that up. And in a moment, it's going to be boiling. And you don't have to worry because, like I said, this is going to cook for a total of about 3.5, 4 hours. So you really don't have to worry much about this thickening up. It's going to definitely thicken up as it cooks. So my oven is already set. And we just have to go ahead and let this come to a boil, and we're going to reincorporate our oxtails. So this is now at a rolling boil. It has thickened up some, but still liquidy. Like I said, it's going to continue to thicken up as it cooks. Now, please look. You'll notice that I've been stirring this as I've been cooking, so there's no lumps in here, despite all of the flour that we've added. So now I can go ahead and reincorporate all of these beautiful oxtails. So again, this is about 6.5 pounds of oxtails, and I'm going to go ahead and start adding them in here. Trying to get most of the bigger ones down to the bottom. But in the end, we just want them all added. And we're going to make sure they all get coated in this beautiful liquid. All right, so this is what we have. All of them are in the pot. All of them are coated. You can already see that this gravy is already starting to darken. So I am going to throw a top on here, and then we're going to throw this in the oven at 300 degrees for 2 hours first. I'll give it a little check, and then it'll probably go for another 1.5 hours, 2 hours after that, and I'll bump the temperature up because we want to give it an even darker color. All right, so here we go. All right, so here we go. This has been in the oven for 2 hours. I hope the steam doesn't ruin this. So I am going to give this a stir. I'm going to move some of the stuff that's at the bottom up to the top. And obviously put the stuff that's at the top down at the bottom. Doesn't this look delicious? And I told you that gravy was going to darken up. So it's going to go back in once again for another, I'd say 1.5 hours, 2 hours. It's already getting very tender. So after that, I think that will pretty much do it. So here we are with the moment of truth. I haven't opened this yet, so I'm sure the steam is just going to go everywhere. But this is after a total now of almost 4 hours of cooking. This is what it looks like. Oh, so let's give it a stir. Oh yeah, this is so tender. And it has rendered out all of that fat. Oh yeah, they're just falling apart, so. All right, so this is what smothered oxtails looks like. And I thank you for watching.